Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. I hope you can hear me out there. If you can hear me, let me know. Hello, hello, hello. So it seems like we're getting feedback on another line. Let me see if I can get rid of that. I hope you can hear me out there. If you can, wonderful. I think we are effectively solo online. We have with me Prince Alvin Gonquet. He's my co-host on this week in review. One of them really, because we're gonna be having multiple people, and even sometimes we may have, you know, substitute hosts. This will be a versatile show, trying to reflect what has happened over the week and being able to incorporate continuance of news that happened in previous weeks. Because we can leave you hanging. Sometimes we got to come to the conclusion of the news. So, we want to say thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the show. We expect to have a wonderful show today. I believe we can get your comments here. Like we got a welcome boss comment from Mr. Dixon S. Doe. So, Prince, how are you today? How's it going? Prince, are you hearing me?
Yeah. Good evening to our. Can you hear me too? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Alpha, can you hear me?
I can hear you
Yeah.
clearly.
So let me. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So let me say good evening to our viewers in Liberia. Good afternoon to our viewers in the US and other parts of the globe. It's good again to be on today's show, the weekend review. And like I said last week, it's always a pleasure sitting alongside a very experienced,
Stop,
politician in
stop,
Mr.
stop the
Azif
adulation. Stop the
Azif
adulation. Let's
Bashir.
get down to business.
Yeah, so it's good. Unfortunately, we can be on the radio because this show is intended to go live on Truth FM from 6 to 7 right before the news. But unfortunately, because of power outage in Liberia generally, plus some
But when
technical
you talking
problems
about power
at the
outage,
station.
any presidents were praising LEC and saying everything is great. What kind of power outage? No
Yeah,
power outage in Liberia.
that was something that was laughable because during the president's sonar he thanked LEC, and we are all shocked because we know that there has been this issue of power shortage across the country. So the current is now almost like something that is being rationed. So during the
I
day,
hear his
a
voice and
particular
Christian light.
segment a particular segment of the country receives current at a certain point in time. First, it used to be 8 hours, but now is 5 hours, and after 5 hours, you off till after 12, 13 hours before you come back on. So the station True FM is facing similar problem. So that's why we cannot be live on True FM today.
Thank you for that update. Thank you. We appreciate it. So they seem like this past week or this week we're still in has been an exciting week with regards to news making. So what are some of the key highlights for the week that we can share with our listening audience?
Okay, so quickly, on Monday, there was the issue of the president's sona, that is the State of the Nation's address, where the president was expected to address the 54th National Legislature, the fifth section, and it was a trending story. So we witnessed the president addressing the nation, and thankfully amongst the opposition politician, Mr. Cummings was one of those who was present. And during the course of the week, on another trending story was the issue of the lawsuit filed by Mr. Musa Hassan Beliti, acting political leader of the opposition Liberty Party, against Senator Abraham Darius Dillon. But just before the news came up in the story, the day before, Councilor Arthur Johnson, who has been who has been hired as the legal counselor for Mr. Musa Hassan Belete, had a press conference where the media was invited, and he announced to the public that his client, Mr. Hassan Belete, has officially filed a complaint to the court. As a matter of fact, is a 1 million lawsuit filed against Mr. Belete for what was referred to as, and he said that it is done with attachment. So I think the legal minds who are following this show will know exactly what that means. So according to information, Senator Dillon should have appeared in court as of yesterday, but yesterday was Section Day, so he did not appear in court. Another story that was trending this week was the ruling of the Mora City Court Judge Joman Jala requesting Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings to provide evidence against himself in court. That was another story that was trending. But some pundits have said that the judge, we cannot go into the merit of the case, but some legal luminaries have said that is unthinkable for the court to request a person to file official provide evidence in the court of law against himself, because we all know that there's a legal adage that says the burden of proof rests on the person who accuses. So we expect that Mr. Benedict Ure and the government, because Mr. Ure is being represented by the government, all right, to have their prima facie to take to court. But unfortunately, the court the judge is now asking Mr. Cummings to provide evidence against himself. So the paper carry it that Mr. Cummings was given 72 hours to provide evidence against himself in the court of law. But we show that the legal team from Mr. Cummings' camp will take the judge to a summary proceeding at the level of the Supreme Court, because I know that this is just intended to just drag, and that's the entire.
There's a next level between. There's a next level between that magistrate court and the Supreme Court, and that's the circuit court, and that's where the issue will be taken for review by the circuit court judge. So the
you're right. You're right.
The situation is fluid. There will be a lot of back and forth, legal, machinations and chicanery, as you say, because from the government side, like, you never know what they're coming with. They said they have all the evidence ready to prosecute Mr. Cummings, and now they are basically begging the defense to help them with a case, which is typically unheard of. I mean, if you believe the defendant has some information, then you probably can go get a search warrant or something to go search something. But a document that the judge says a public document, why you can get it from the public, you're asking the defendant to produce that document. That's kind of crazy. But like you say, we'll let the lawyers handle it, we'll let the court handle it. We got some strong opinions, but we'll hold those. But you gave the audience, a broad range of some of the news, starting with the court case. But I think there were one or two other things that you left out, like Yombli Kanga and the vice president being witnesses who would testify.
Let me.
Go ahead.
Yes. Then additionally, it was also announced. It was also announced in the papers right after the president's State of the Nation address. It was announced in the papers that the president presented pickups and motorbikes to all of the chiefs and zones, chief elders and zones. That was also trending in the paper. And then, like you said, the political leader, or the suspended political leader of the Liberty Party, and Mr. Joseph Yuma Boakai of the Unity Party are expected to take the witness stand and testify against Mr. Alexander Cummings. That was also trending in the news.
That would be extremely interesting to be in the court to watch Joseph Boyka, as a person of interest, basically, even though he will be testifying, but it will be important to watch the dynamics there.
Yeah, sure.
As the current chairman of the CPP, testifying to that, when according to how they should be reconciling disputes in a CPP, he has not even spoken to it since he took the seat as the chairman of the CPP. And similarly with Yomli, who constituted a committee to investigate. They investigated, they reached out to the lawyers. The lawyer said there was no alteration, and the document that was at NEC was essentially the document that they presented. So they understand, especially after the videos with them saying, yes, this is what we did. We asked the lawyers for review. We had a session where we reviewed it, and that was the document that was approved. So at this point, we just really, really have to wait for the court, But we got to intersperse some of the comments from some of the people. There's a Facebook user, I don't see the name. It says the sooner which was expected, the 2 court cases involving ANC and ALP admissibility and versus Senator Dillon. But we think the most important issue was the fallout from the massacre that occurred in Nuku Town at the Crusade. Not only was it avoidable, but shocking and brought to the limelight the question of Zogo and the impact on national security. That Facebook user is making a very, very important and salient point in this national discussion. And I'll tell you, yesterday I had a meeting with some concerned people about this Zogo situation, and many security threat. And for somebody like me who are going to the ghettos and talk to some of these young people, I really believe it is. I agree. The upspringing of ghettos in nearly every community, the proximity of ghettos to the schools, you typing? Your typing is interfering if you're typing. Prince, can you hear me?
I'm not typing. Yeah, I'm hearing you. I'm not typing.
Oh, I don't know. It sounds like somebody typing. Yeah, the proximity of these ghettos to the schools and the issue of drugs and how they flow into the ghettos. And then there were other people there who were enlightening us. There are different levels to the Zogos. There are those who are drug addicts. There are those who are like hardcore criminals. There are those who are snatch and carry criminals, jacking bag, jacking purse, jacking cell phone or something like that. And then there are those who sleep in the graveyard, So we have to really have a frontal assault on this problem. And some wonderful ideas were bounced. It's just a matter of how can we get support for implementation? How can we expand the focus of those who are interested in finding solutions to to this serious problem? So this user is right. I think that's an overriding national concern, because as regards the president's speech, I will try to share screen on one comment, and you can tell me no, because I don't understand what he's trying to say.
Yeah,
maybe.
So yeah, COS, just before we move on to the president's speech, let me just weigh in on this entire Zogo issue. Liberia is faced with a real security threat if something is not quickly done to take those Zogos off the streets. And if something is not quickly done, there will come a time in this country where people will be walking on the street in broad daylight, and you will see Zogos, quote unquote, hijacking people broad day and taking their belongings away. This is a very serious challenge. COS, I had to say, because I live in Pinsville, and we have the opportunity, those of us who are actively politically involved, we've been able to tour the entire Painesville and see some of the hotspots. The young people of this country are dying slowly. When you enter what they refer to as woo, you see young people, the future leaders of this country, their heads are bowed down under blanket, and they are sometimes when you enter some woods, you see if you know the guy sitting two, and you know sitting by pairs. This is a serial power outage from our enemy.
Well, but yes, we
Serious.
understand that. But continue
Yes.
as if nothing happened. But when they're sitting in pairs, what are they doing as pairs? What are they doing?
Their heads are under blanket and they are chasing smoke. And when you leave from them, when you see them, you feel so bad, because the truth is those guys are people who should have been doctors. They should have been engineers, you know, lawmakers, presidents, you know, ministers. But you see the guys are in the ghettos and smoking. But now the major question is, how are those guys getting hold of the drugs being taken? That is a serious concern. Now there has been advocacy from some civil society organizations, even in Painesville. All right, young people are advocating so that, you know, the drug dealing can be a non-bailable offense. And it is finding the thanks to Representative Thomas Goswa, who is taking the leading in showing that, you know, that bill is sent to the House of Senate, because as I learned, the lower house has passed on it, and it has been taken to the House of Senate, and we're hoping that it can pass, because Ava, if you are doing a business, and obviously you don't have anybody coming to buy, you're not continue doing such business. Obviously you will not continue doing such business. But in a situation where you are doing your business and people are coming to buy and your business is booming, obviously you will keep on doing what you are doing, because you are getting profit from it. All right. So this is just the same situation with this entire drug issue. It is of no secret. I think we all in Liberia know that people who are dealing drugs, what they are formed is a cartel. So in order to break through, and that cartel is made of people who are high-ranking officials in government. Somebody will say, we don't have to for it, right? But I think it's a kind of open secret, because when a drug dealer is arrested and taken to court, the next day you see the man walking free. The next thing he goes back to get the drugs, bring it in a community. The young people taking those substances, they become so brave. They go out there and just attack anybody anyhow. So it's about government herself taking responsibility to ensure that, you know, these things can be minimized, because in the absence of that, I can tell you that we are as a country, we are gradually losing out on the young people, and in a country whose young people cannot be dependent on. All right, all obviously that country is doomed, and that's similar thing that's happening to Liberia. So sometimes parents even sit down and say that if you have a child who has patience to go to school and learn something, you should be happy, because when you see other people's children in the ghettos, it's a serious problem. So we hope that, you know, national government.
Yeah. So, but just to touch on that, this week, a note came around supposedly about the unionization of the different Zogos. Let me see if I mute you. Okay. So something came around about the unionization of the different Zogo. There was a a viral comment or post or something that came around. And though there were some facts in there, but most of the people who were at the meeting with me yesterday and talking, they did not feel that there is an actual union, but the potential exists. But this whole thing is structured and organized. Like you said, these criminals, those who commit crimes, they get free. Though some of these people, unfortunately, are victims but many of them are victimizing other Liberians, and we cannot continue that cycle of victimization. Yes, our friend here has asked a question about coup happening around West Africa and the internal security problems. It's really, really a tough situation in West Africa right now. But I think, fortunately for Liberia, the mindset is that we are tired. That's the perspective that many people come from. So most likely when I have a coup, people are tired with war, people are tired of fighting. And we hope that's true. But sometimes there's no fighting after coup. It all depends on how the coup is carried out. But our country is tired. That's why government needs to pay strong attention to these things that undermine the stability of the country, from the economics to the nothing is certain in life, from the economics to the social services to the rule of law and to justice. All of those things, when they are not done right, there are potential for things to happen that you don't want to happen. But let me share with you guys a little video of something that I believe this is it. Let's see if I'm sharing right. Sometimes this sharing thing, you got to take out the specific. The link is not playing, so we'll come back to it later. But basically, it was a video. Is a WhatsApp. I don't know if you can hear.
Bringing money before the campaign, in campaign time. So I want to be on record. In the interest of transparency and credibility.
So I think the president was clear there. I hope you guys heard him. We're not bringing money campaign time. That's part of it. One thing I will get back to that later on. We're not bringing money in campaign time, and in the interest of transparency and credibility, I haven't heard those two together in a very, very long time. The situation with this money thing, this government has played around with money in so many different ways that affects the economy, affects the population. The 16 billion, the 25 million mop up, what they did with the mutilated notes that were all there, what they're doing with this new 4 billion that came in that we don't understand the infusion. What are they doing with these funds? So it's like the central bank operations is in a cloud. The Crow report made many recommendations. The government is not keeping us posted on how these recommendations are being implemented. So, like people are saying too, in terms of justice, in terms of them utilizing the court system to, I don't know, sideline opponents or sideline people who don't subscribe to the script of the government. We'll take, for example, the Samoka case. How is it that 3 persons commit a crime supposedly, and you divide the responsibility for each of those 3 persons, and one person make their payment, which is Mr. Samoka? He made half of his payment. He owes half. The other people did not make any payment. And then you will group all of them now into one bucket and say that they have to pay it, together. I don't know the legal rationale. I'm not a lawyer, but hopefully some understanding can come to this, because like she's saying, you undermine stability if you use the court system to intimidate or crush your opposition. That's not what the court system is about. And for those who are silent as these things are going on, at some point they come for you. When injustice is not spoken to, that injustice continues with impunity and people suffer. So to the extent that we can get a full legal explanation of what's happening in the Samokai case, what is the Supreme Court's justification for ordering his arrest? We all need to understand those things. Otherwise, there may be some reaction from some corners that support Samokai. We don't want that. We really, really don't want any kind of negative, volatile situation in our country. To speak to Mr. Victor Boya's question, where he said, coups are taking place around us in West Africa because of internal security problems. I don't know if it's only internal security. It's also about economics. It's also about, depriving people. It's about impunity. So, my view is let us try to isolate those different coups and see the reasons for some of those coups. But we can only hope that those things that are causing those coups, we have not risen to that level in Liberia where there will be something similar happening. We pray. We know recently the military have been recruiting. We know over time there has been attrition. They haven't been able to retain many of the people who are in the military. And we don't know the mindset of the military. At one point, people were pointing at them and saying stuff, and I believe they came out and said the nation was, secure, and they were not moving in that direction or thinking about it. But sometimes you never know where it comes from. It not come from the leadership. I don't think Master Sergeant Doe was one of the military leaders that were recognized in the country. So we have to be very careful. We have to be very focused on security. And like I said, we are not ready for another incident, whether attempted coup or anything like that. We need to use our democratic processes to effect the change of government we need. That's why those who are dissatisfied have to express their dissatisfaction through democratic means, whether it's protest, whether it's demonstration, whether it's rally, whether it's gathering to make their points. It has to be through the democratic means. Now we know this government attempts to crush every, coordination, congregation, wherever people come together to resent what government is doing. This government tends to try to bring a strong arm to it. Most recently, it was done on Capitol Hill when, people were not protesting, rallying because it was an assembly. They were not moving. They were in a fixed location, doing it very peacefully. When government intervened, started firing, tear gas and chasing people. There were many injuries. And that's cause for really, then seeking redress, those individuals and people who are concerned for that violation of human rights, because that's a total violation. And like I said, in the Samokai case, we need to get a better understanding. Hopefully, we'll be able to invite, some legal luminary, somebody who understands, this kind of law, especially as it relates to the criminality in it, the reimbursement process, the initial ruling from the Supreme Court, validating the lower court's ruling, and then what Samokai can do now as an individual, and whether the arrest is just a warning or is actually something that is going to be done. And by Monday, we hear that Samokai is in jail. So we don't know what that is. We don't know what the reaction will be. And hopefully, did Samokai flee? Yes. No, the government is just off the charts in terms of the reaction. And that's what puzzles me as a former member of the CDC. and for the number of protests we organized for everything wrong that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf did. The way we were easy, it was so easy for us to get in the streets, you know, for people to tow casket, for people to do this, for people to just, you know, talk. Even though we tried to have message discipline, it was difficult. So what's happening is fear, their own tactics. Whatever the CDC did, they are intimidated that other people can create that level of awareness. But the thing is simple: govern properly, do the right thing by the people. This Sogo situation we're talking about, it's the same thing. These were the people that we had in our corner. These were the people that we said we pushed to make a difference for them. Give them the opportunity to get their dignity back, to get work, to be able to provide for their family. You know, so that has not happened with this government. This government made so many promises initially before coming to power. They're consistently at every State of the Nation address. If you go back and check those promises, they have failed, totally failed. So it's necessary that this government wakes up to the needs of the people, to the bread and butter issues. They shouldn't be trying to fool people and talk about the economy as well. They should just look at the basics. Let them look at the basket of goods that were used in the 2018, you know, inflation calculation by our central bank, because I don't think they have changed the methodology. Yes, some people can question the methodology, but let's not question it now. Let them use whatever they used in 2018 as that baseline and look at today's prices of that basket of goods and see what the inflation has been, see how people are suffering. And that applies to so many different things. That's what we need to focus on. Government needs to wake up. You know, we want this thing to be democratic. We don't want it to be anything else. We want our people to be able to live by our Constitution and not something new. Because, you know, some people may wish for something to happen, some change to happen outside the democratic process. You don't know what's coming. So we don't wish that. At least we know this devil now, and we are trying our best through the democratic means to move this government, to elect a new leader, to elect a new group of people who will come with a different perspective, come with different goals, and be able to make a difference for our people. Yeah, economics is very practical. Very practical. People feel it. Immediate effect. You know, you can talk about exchange rate improving compared with the dollar. But if the exchange rate is going down to 130, 140 for each United States dollar, and many people are receiving remittances, so the value of the US dollar is decreasing, while the prices are the same or increasing, they are losing. It's not rocket science. So we have to really think about how this dual currency is working, how our economy should be run, how we can create opportunities for our people out there. And many suggestions have been given to this government. Unfortunately, this government has not responded to inputs from people. They have had economic forums. Individuals have written papers. Professionals have reached out to them, but to no avail. So at some point, there may be, you know, unnecessary reaction from people, or maybe an overreaction, or maybe some people say an appropriate reaction. But things need to change. So other things in the news, this whole rape issue. The rape issue is something the government has to really look at. The government really needs to look at these problems and not focus on the bling bling that they've been focusing on. You know, the acquisition of property, the balling, the enjoyment. You know, when you become a servant of the people, whether elected or appointed, there's a certain level of responsibility that you have to step up to. And this government has not done that. They have not come to the senses that 5 million people are totally dependent on their actions. They have not come to grasp with that and the weight of what that means.
Yeah.
Hey, Prince, we are glad to see you are back. Hopefully everything is all right. Are you okay now?
Okay. Yeah. COS, sorry. I think I announced to you proud to this moment that we have power shortage. So it was kind of disturbing, and then the internet started misbehaving too as well. But thank God I'm back on the show.
Yeah. So basically, we've just been talking some specifics on some of the things that have been making news.
I'm not hearing you too well because of the audio is not too clear.
It's not clear to you? Is it a little better?
Not at all.
Wow.
There's still grounding in the audio.
I can hear you clearly, but I don't know why you can't hear me. And I'm sure if our listeners were not hearing me, they will be complaining. They don't joke. So we got a question here. This says why the current CPP chairman is not speaking on Samokai issue. I don't know if you have any insight on that. But for me, I'm saying, what has the current chairman spoken on?
Oh, it's better now. The audio is better now.
Okay. So what has the current chairman of the CPP, former Vice President Joseph Ejiman Boyka, what has he spoken on that somebody should have an expectation that he will really speak out, on some of these issues, especially something that involves Samoka or involves, Mr. Cummings? We have not heard him. So where is he on the democracy issue? Where is he on justice?
So, relative to the quality of Mr. Boyka, as it relates to activities within the CPP, I think it's something that clearly shows Mr. Boyka's inability to provide leadership. We must be very blunt with this. Leadership is about influencing the way people think, the way people behave. So if you call yourself a leader and you are not able to influence the way people think and behave, that means you are not a very good leader. When Mr. Boyka took over from Madam Yomi Kanga Lawrence, he took over a CPP that started generating some kind of noise. All right, so it was the expectation of those of us who are members of the CPP by the fact that we are members of constituent parties within the CPP. It was our thought that Mr. Boyka was coming to provide leadership so that the crisis within the CPP can be harmonized. But there are other folks who still think that who still did not believe that Mr. Boyka has the leadership credential. So they form a manner in which the current chair of the CPP has handled activities regarding the CPP comes as surprise to some, but also it comes as no surprise to other group of people, because those of us, for me personally, I must say that I just do not believe in the leadership credential of Mr. Boyka. So his failure to minimize or to bring under control, the unending, fracas within the CPP, for me, I think it's something that does not in any way come as a surprise. All right, so his being quiet with what's that's happening, further shows that the CPP is not settled at all. And it was in the paper, like I said from the beginning of the show, It was in the paper that Mr. Boakai and Madam Yombi Kanga Lawrence are expected to testify against Mr. Cummings. All right. If Mr. Boakai was providing leadership for the CPP, if Yombi Kanga Lawrence had a thought that she wants a united CPP as one of the leaders within the CPP, I think this situation should not be to where it is. In fact, they should have been the one calling Mr. Ure to order. They are the ones who should have been providing the necessary checkpoints of Mr. Ure to tell him that his action to issue raid against Mr. Cummings relative to this framework document issue, is something that they should have spoken against a long time ago. But mind you, Ava, the fight is anything that affects Mr. Cummings in the CPP benefits Mr. Boakai.
It may seem that way, but that may not be necessarily true.
Yeah, you're not agree with me, but I think anything that
no, I'm saying it may seem that way to Mr. Boakai, but it's not necessarily true because it could affect him as well. Because whatever happens to somebody else.
Yes, I'm talking about this from the angle where Mr. Cummings and Mr. Boakai are the major competitor for the standard bearership of the CPP. All right, if you agree with me. So in every competition, what affects your opponent negatively benefits you positively. I'm not saying it's going to lend him the presidency, but I'm going to say the competition between Mr. Boakai and Mr. Cummings, all right, is at a point where anything that affects Mr. Cummings, Mr. Boakai thinks that it benefits him. Okay, so it's a kind of political situation where Mr. Boakai thinks that the issue of Mr. Cummings being dragged to court benefits him. In fact, it brings Mr. Cummings to the public, and the mistake they're making is that they have failed to realize that this entire scenario is making Mr. Cummings more popular. All right, if you look at all of the local dailies, those of us who follow the news on a daily basis, if you look at all of the local dailies, Mr. Cummings is in the news. It's in the news. It's in the headlines of all the newspapers. So one way or the other is providing some level of popularity for him. All right, but they will not see it from the angle. They will see it from the angle where they want to fight back. But the bottleneck here is Mr. Boakai has not provided leadership for the CPP. That's why the CPP has continuously traded in the kind of fracas it is in.
There's some hot news here right now. The lawyers for Mr. Cummings, they have filed a challenge to the judge's ruling to the circuit court. So what they are saying is there is no business without ruling by Judge Juman Jala. So really need to get people to understand more stuff about this particular ruling, and we'll come back to that in a separate live to talk about it, to let people know that the defense is seeking a review at the circuit court in the Cummings case, and they are challenging a ruling that has never happened. There is nobody who can set precedent or show it that in Liberia, the defense has been asked to provide evidence to basically incriminate or prosecute themselves. That is just totally crazy. So we don't know that that's what is going to happen. But hey, our lawyers in this case for Mr. Cummings, they are focused on making this a short case, and we hope the government can understand that, because we're trying to keep Mr. Cummings tied up. But that is not going to be successful. So we are looking forward to that case. But right now, folks, we have with us one of our very astute and smart Liberians. We know there have been some issues in the agricultural sector. Many of us have been major advocates of infusion of capital into the agricultural sector, infusion of resources to make a difference for our people, drive us towards food sufficiency and being able to, manage ourselves in so many different ways. But this young man is a development specialist. He has some high credits. I don't want to bore you with it because we're limited in time. But I want to add him now. Is no other than Mr. Amula Mame. And besides the agriculture and development stuff, he's also focused on things that are best for Liberia, you know, especially when it came to our equity, the Liberian people equity into the oil concessions. So I will allow him to say a little bit about himself before we get into the topic that, you know, a very recent and powerful article that he penned and that's, you know, in the public space right now. So Ambula, feel free.
Chairman, it's good joining you today. Most of the time we ever met has always been either on the telephone, you know, getting some wise counsel from you, or sitting down and having some kind of dinner or lunch together. But to come in the public together like this, we always be in the background. To come in the public like this, the first time I appreciate, you know, the opportunity to join you on the platform to talk. Liberians know me all around, whether it's, you know, growing up as a student activist, whether it's growing up in the corporate banking sector in Liberia, working with the National Oil Company, and even coming to the US. I work as a international agriculture development practitioner. I manage multi-million dollars USAID and FAO projects, including in Nicaragua, in Haiti, in Ethiopia. I led the team that worked with the Ghanaian government to mainstream nutrition in the agriculture policy. You saw that publication with the FAO. So that's the work I do. Not to go much into that, I'm interested and focused on how we can make agriculture work for Liberia,
Right.
and to how we can put the spotlight on identifying those challenges and how we can move the country forward.
Right. So thank you for that brief intro. I know there's a lot more to you and your advocacy and your actual professional work. But right now, you have an article that's, you know, taking those who are interested in the agriculture sector and most likely going to spread to the general public. So give us a brief understanding of what inspired you to do that article and what it's all about.
I know there's no attention focus on the agriculture sector, whether it's from the government. A lot of things just happening under the bridge. So I took time to say, we looking how it has worked in other places, there need to be a concerted effort towards monitoring activities in the sector and reporting, especially by people who have the expertise or some level of training to do that. We realize that historically, not only with the WIA administration, but historically, the government has abandoned the sector to an army of NGOs who have critical and important role to play. But when those rules are not tailored well, they tend to become ineffective and not solving the problem, but only addressing the symptoms. It was against that background. And I've been following the president's annual message, President WIA annual message. Every time he comes with the annual message, he doesn't report well on agriculture. In some instances, he will make promise for the sector. The next report, instead of reporting on the outcome of those promises, he make additional promises without addressing the previous promises he made or what were the outcome of those interventions. So this year I decided, I said, okay, I will wait for him to come up with an annual message, and then I will present the state of agriculture in Liberia, presenting it with facts and evidence.
Wonderful.
Since I knew that historically what he does, he just can't make promise. The next time he comes back, he doesn't say anything about those promises he made. What were the outcome? And even if there were outcome, how sustainable are those outcomes? So he just play around it. So we did a report for somebody. We even counted the number of words that the president used for agriculture in his reporting. I got a report. So this year I decided, I said, okay, I will wait for him. Once he comes out with a report, then I will present the evidence and the fact around the status of agriculture in Liberia. And that's what I did. And that's what we'll be talking about today.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, you know, nearly 72% of our labor force is involved in agriculture, but they don't see the benefits of that. And there's always like some of these schemes. You see, I have a problem even when they feed the future and other things. They go back to that slash and burn methodology, like you said. A lot of NGOs are involved in our agriculture sector, and we don't see the impact, we don't see the effect, we don't see the elevation of our agriculture sector into value addition, into really exporting some of what we can do. And with our potential, we are able to feed all those starving areas around Africa. So what is strangulating this sector? If you could just give us like maybe 5 primary reasons that this sector is not moving.
We will just talk about the state of the agriculture first. I think you got a copy of the highlights.
I did.
So for the sake of the audience and people who have not followed that, it just be good to talk about the state of the agriculture with the evidence we have, and then we can come back to provide plausible, ideas and suggestions on why it is going the way it is going and what we could do to be able to address it. So we concluded that the agriculture sector is abandoned.
Right. That's your premise. That's your premise.
Yes. So that it has been abandoned.
Tell us why.
That it has been abandoned to NGO and hundreds of millions spent, but farm productivity is falling and farmer losses and food insecurity increasing.
Right.
We used the FAO data from 2006 to 2020. We concluded that the total production of rice in Liberia, the average production of rice in Liberia from the period 2006 to 2020, assuming one grain doesn't fall in the production process, Liberia can only produce less than half a cup of rice per Liberian. And in Liberia, average Liberian man consume more than 1 cup of rice a day.
Easily. Because I'm serious. It's morning, afternoon, and evening. Most people eat rice.
Morning, afternoon, and evening. But the production system, the rice value chain has failed to produce even half cup of rice per Liberian per day because of low productivity. That situation, you apply it to what is happening in the neighboring countries, you realize that countries like Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Guinea are producing far more than we are producing.
That's a fact.
So we left the production system and say, okay, let's look at the policy environment that can influence productivity in the production system. So we say, okay, let's look at the seed sector. Where are farmers getting their seeds from?
NGOs.
Where are farmers getting their fertilizers from?
NGOs.
Over 90% of the farmers rely on cross-border trade of seeds and fertilizers coming from Guinea, Sierra Leone. The risks for that is most of the seeds and fertilizers that come into the country through the cross-border activities, they are not certified. They are counterfeit seeds. They are counterfeit fertilizers. So when farmers acquire them and apply them on their plot of land, at the end of the harvest, at the end of the cultivation period, there is a huge disappointment and frustration because productivity is low.
So the fact that those things are not certified, they're probably not of the exact seed variety that they probably claim to be, and some of the limitations. So planting it doesn't make a difference. It will not provide a yield.
Exactly. But the ordinary farmers are looking for fertilizer. They are looking for seeds. So when somebody brings fertilizer and seed wrapped in one good plastic, the assumption it is good. But the ecological condition under which they are producing doesn't match either the seed or the fertilizer. So they spend their productivity is low, they get frustrated, and you experience mass exodus of people leaving from the agriculture sector, and either young people doing artisanal mining or riding motorbikes. So we saw what is happening with that. So we follow the World Bank that conducts assessment on how countries conduct their agricultural business. It's called the enabling environment for agricultural business. The World Bank study shows that Liberia is the worst country in the world for farmers to do their business.
How can that be?
Because part of the indicators they're looking at is what policy environment is being put in place to create security for investment. The seed sector, for example, the fertilizer sector, for example, for private capital to move into the seed sector and the government policy must be pronounced because the NGO's intervention are disruptive. The government intervention too sometimes can be disruptive. So if they are not predictable, say for example, you don't know when government is bringing in seed, when government is bringing in fertilizer, when NGOs are bringing in seeds and fertilizer, what quantity they are bringing in, and you come and invest. And normally the government seeds and the government fertilizer and the NGO seeds and NGO fertilizer will be far below market price.
Right.
So nobody want to invest hoping that they can make minimum margin, and in the middle of that investment, there is a fraud.
So to
of
some
NGOs.
extent, government policy undermining the push for agricultural enhancement in the country.
Exactly. Government policies undermining the government actions are undermining it. And government is not taking frantic effort to reverse that. So that's what the World Bank report shows. But besides the World Bank report, we went to AU. AU is tracking, and the government agrees on the indicators. AU is tracking her member country progress towards agricultural transformation because everybody agree there is no argument now in the development cycle. We all agree that no country in the world historically have moved people sustainably out of poverty without increasing agricultural productivity and transforming agricultural sector. That is a resolution.
Right.
So the AU say, since Africa is poor, to be able to address this poverty issue, let's keep our attention on how are we moving the needle along the agricultural transformation line. Since 2017, all reports, the biannual report provided by the AU, show that Liberia is not on track towards agricultural transformation. The latest report of the 24 indicators, Liberia failed 22 of those indicators. That is scary.
That's very scary. So what do we really have comparative advantage with, right? Because sometimes I talk to some people and they believe that producing rice in Liberia may not be profitable for Liberians. Why can't we focus on other crops or other foods that are exportable, that are easier for value addition, and that can be used? Probably getting rice from China or India is probably cheaper, where these people have developed expertise over the years. Even though when you go back in history, we were some of the greatest rice farmers. Even the people who left our shores and went to the US, especially those people in the South Carolina, North Carolina, Louisiana, and other areas, you know, they were the big time farmers. They taught the people there how to farm rice. So how can we really analyze where we are as a country in terms of agriculture? Why are we not doing something when we have the land, we have the people, we have gotten, like you said, millions of dollars infused into our quote unquote agriculture sector for all these different kind of projects that has been at the Ministry of Agriculture, but they can't account for any real productivity or elevation of the sector. What do we do?
So we do not have, I don't want to say we do not have. People in leadership and people working in the sector do not have the capacity to engage into evidence-based agricultural transformation, into executing evidence-based intervention. I've said that over and over, and the AU report is one of the indicators they track. The AU tracks to what extent people in the sector either have the capacity or the patience, because to engage into evidence-based intervention, you must have the patience to think critically. But
isn't that a national problem? Isn't that a national problem? Data, yes. Data.
Most of our people are allergic to critical thinking. Every time you want to pin the situation down to critical thinking, they say you want to add, you know so much, and they just want to move by emotions and sentiments. So evidence-based process requires a whole lot of critical thinking, and our people are allergic to critical thinking. Joe, we are being the worst.
And it's intentional, it's detailed, and it's grunt work to get data. And most people don't want to get into the weeds to be able to do those things. And that's the only way our country can change. Even we're just having that discussion with regards to the Zogos yesterday. We don't have evidence on the number of Zogos. We don't have any demographic evidence of them. We don't have any idea of what their skills are, what their capacities are, what level of illnesses they have, what level of dependency they have. None of those things. So how can we bring any solution to any sector if we can't have some quantum as to what's really going on in those sectors, especially agriculture?
So that is one of the problems with the agriculture. So the NGOs, like I said in the article, and I work with them. All the work I do, I work with NGOs. So people, if even some of my colleagues who read the article say, "Hey, this is a hard line you took." I say, but I always take hard line. So the thing is, we work with them. The NGOs have very critical and important role to play. They are good in diagnosing problems, especially at the very grassroots level. In terms of intervention, most of their intervention only address the symptoms of those problems, because most of those problems are structural, and because the NGOs are not in a position to lead structural reform, they only tend to address the symptoms and leave the problem unresolved. What needs to happen is these resources must be aligned with structural approach to transforming the sector, rather than just playing around the symptom. And when the NGO leaves at the end of the project, after 2 months, everything reverts to nothing.
Yeah, but that's another thing. What is sustainability around any of these projects? What knowledge transfer, capability transfer is actually implemented along with these projects, that let's the STAR project or the STAR P or whatever else that's supposed to elevate all these different smallholders? What happens with them after these people leave?
Absolutely, almost nothing happens. NGOs provide the support that they are funded to provide, and when the funding ends, they leave. They will come. The project document will say it is aligned with the country development agenda and XYZ. That's fine. It's sweet to talk, but in terms of implementation, the agriculture minister, when she just took over, I didn't support her when she was taking over. Though I have my own reservation, and not that she's not qualified or competent, but I just believe that the sector needs somebody with a political clout to be able to move resources there. She doesn't have that. In fact, she doesn't even want to engage into the politics of agriculture. When she went for Senate confirmation, she said the politicians should leave me to do my job. It is not possible.
No, but the political, you see, and that's another thing. A lot of our intellectual, our smart, our capable Liberians say, "Oh, I don't have anything to do with politics." But politics controls everything. Every dime she spends for that ministry is controlled by politics. The machinations in the budget control when it comes to agriculture sector, how you spend money.
Ton of literature and findings. I mean, real empirical findings on the critical role of the political economy of agricultural development. You cannot transform agriculture without dealing with the politics of how resources move to the sector. So if you say politicians should leave you, how do you do your work? You must convince them that the approach towards transformation is agriculture and it requires money. And you must be able to report to them and everybody on the same page towards that transformation. So, but one thing she did though, when she became minister, she said, but these projects I see here and the costing and the different things they want to do, they are not aligned with the priorities on the ground. She was pointing finger. She was pointing finger at a bigger picture, but she was only using the African Development Bank project to raise the alarm. She insisted that the list of tractors the African Development Bank has agreed on and has already initiated a procurement process on to procure for the project, they were not aligned with the needs on the ground. When I read the project, I said, but the agriculture minister is right. And I supported her that the project rating and the equipment design for smallholder producers, they're not aligned. And she was successful in reversing it and procuring new set of equipment for farmers. What she did was just a tip of the iceberg. Almost all the projects found themselves in similar situation. But I show, because she did not receive the support from the top to push for the revision of almost all the projects, so she slowed down and only started.
Well, I don't think they ever really intended to support her. I think the appointment was kind of cosmetic. It was to satisfy certain needs, whether it was checking the boxes or female, somebody with low international experience, blah, blah, blah. So I have not seen that, real support. And that makes a big difference. Like you said, the politics in government, even within people who share the same ideas, is huge. And she hasn't been able to. But one question I have for you, and a friend of mine keeps saying, if we don't establish that, we'll not move forward. What is the definition of a farmer in Liberia? In some places, it'll be like somebody who gets maybe $1,000 in revenue on a regular basis, on an annual basis, or something. Some criteria that separates anybody who just put hole in the ground from somebody who's considered a farmer. What is our definition in Liberia?
I've had my definition, and there's no one definition for farmer. But the way I see farming is a business. A farmer is somebody who is able to invest in his land, and at the end of the investment is able to generate profit. Farming is a business.
But like you said, though, like sometimes there could be uncontrollable instances, whether from a weather situation, whether from the wrong approach, whether from seeds, that you're not able to be profitable. So even though sometimes you may sell $10,000 worth of goods, but your investment will have been $20,000, and that's a $10,000 loss. And that happens in the sector.
In all sectors, there are exogenous factors that can lead to people losing, what they expected or what they projected. But the message I was trying to send with my definition of farmer is, farmer are people. I was trying to send a message that we should see farming as a business. Farmers must be able to make profit, whether it is monetary profit or if they are subsistence farmer. The level of energy, the time they spend, the labor, the cost of their labor they spend to produce on a hectare of land, when they harvest, they should be able to have something to take them to the next farming year. The productivity is low, so the profit doesn't have to be monetary in terms of, but we can quantify it. If the farmer spend 3 weeks of his energy and labor on a farm, he's planting his cassava, time to harvest, he should harvest enough to keep him for the next period of time equal to the square foot of the land he produced. That's why we call agricultural productivity.
Yes. And we are, like you said, we are very low. I've compared productivity in Liberia with other places for different products, and it's like night and day. And that's something that we have to change. Even the technology that we utilize in terms of agriculture, in other places, we are far removed from that. So how do we bridge that gap? I got my own ideas, but I would like to hear something from you.
The first thing we need a strong government showing into the agriculture sector. I said that you cannot transform the sector with all the government showing her readiness to transform the sector. That's one. So we need a strong government showing in the sense where there must be a clear pathway, a clear policy, and a timeline. We currently have a agricultural development plan for 3 years. It's short. That's my view. It's short. I'm not calling for 10 years, but I'm calling for 7 years beyond the presidential term, or 8 years. That plan must be designed with all the different stakeholders, the legislature, the civil society, the farmers, and adapted. Like in the US, we have the Farm Bill. When the Farm Bill is passed, for the length of year, for the 7-10 years it's passed for, every government that come proceed with that process, because the cultivation process, the entire value chain process takes longer than people can expect. So you don't want a situation where a new government comes and trying to redo a process. So that's the first thing. We need a plan that goes beyond 3 years. We need a commitment, and once all the stakeholders agree that this is the pathway and convinced with the evidence that this is the way to proceed, to get funding to it will not be difficult. But if you prepare one plan, 2-3 persons sit in one room one day, prepare one plan, suddenly it appears in the budget, then the legislature becomes skeptical to support.
But that legislature rubber stamps everything. So but your overarching point about legislating some of these plans is critical. I think across the country, a development plan needs to be a constitutional or document that's put into law that extends beyond, like you say, presidency. It could be a 10-year, 15-year, 25-year development plan. What happens in other countries that if one-term possibility for George Weah happens, then that next government has an obligation, and like they say, there's some continuity in government to be able to implement some of those things. Where is a national vision that we all kind of get together and say, this is our vision for this country? But we don't have that, and it's very difficult for us to have any continuity in government.
And going back to the root going back to the root, the problem we have, and people will try to live on the myth. The problem we have is productivity. Productivity meaning the harvest you make from 1 hectare of land is small.
Very.
And because it's small, it's a disincentive for people to keep investing. What happening is people will say the soil is rich because when the soil is not cultivated and you go there and do your first and second cultivation, you will get the yield. But in the third cultivation, you might lose. So what the people normally do is they do shifting cultivation. They plant today, the next year, they move to another place. That is not sustainable because you're bringing more land into cultivation. What we're trying to do is to keep the size of land producing the quantity to meet its potential. So to address productivity issue, we must understand the nutrients need of our soil and be able to know which application of fertilizer can be able to address those needs. What is happening now, let me lay my thought on this. The government brings in fertilizer, distribute the fertilizer to farmers without even knowing the needs of the soil. The soil is like human being. Before you treat it with medication, which is fertilizer, you must diagnose what is the problem.
So how many soil testing labs do we have? I know there was one at Grand Bassa Community College. I don't know how many other soil testing labs we have in Liberia.
I don't have the statistics, but I know that I had to call it Kari, the Center for Agricultural Research Institute, have a lab, but that lab is centralized. Nobody all around now, nobody relying on centralized government lab system.
Decentralization is key.
What is happening now is we have all the different sensors. Private sector, private actors have all the different sensors that they're using. Cornell University will work with them to produce one. It can detect the nutrients need now and project the nutrient need in the next 30 years. So why are you even projecting for your farm? Say, okay, this is why currently I don't need fertilizer. But in the next 2-3 years, I will be budgeting because I need this quantity of nitrogen, this quantity of phosphorus, and I even need small macronutrients, input on my soil. So it gives you that information for planning purposes. So you don't need one centralized lab at Kari where all the farmers will have to bring their soil for testing. The sensors are all around.
Right. And the technology in that area has improved so much.
Oh, so much.
Parts of billion to the billion parts. And we can it's just frustrating where our sector is, but hopefully our people can wake up. So, not to bore our people because we're actually in our 7, but luckily we don't have the radio broadcast. So we're continuing here. Just give us a summary because I'm actually at a meeting that I'm supposed to be participating in, but this topic has been so, fascinating. And I think it's the same for our listeners. So just share with us some parting thoughts and, just your overall opinion about how we should move forward.
So the parting thought is the NGOs, we have abandoned the sector to them. They have critical and important roles to play, but those roles can only be those roles they are playing only addressing the symptoms of the problem. We need to move to the root causes of the problem. To move to the root causes of the problem, the government must show strong showing into that process. Resources that will be invested into agriculture must be invested into a plan that is intentionally designed to be rigorously assessed over the period of time, whether there are progress, whether there are challenges, and the failure must be made known so that we take key lessons from those failures to move forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. We really appreciate your time. And I know we'll be coming back to you because this is a topic that's close to my heart as well. I think that is the way forward for Liberia. We are fortunate in terms of my company, Sustainable Development International, to have an opportunity to implement our model that we believe the integration of groundwater with solar energy and, newer technology, especially erosion protection, being able to fertilize and have the soil in the right state that's aligned with whatever you're trying to grow would make a big difference in agriculture. So we have 2 opportunities that will kick off hopefully by mid-February, end of February, and see how those demonstrations will go. And hopefully it can be a launching path for us to improve the agriculture sector. So thank you for appearing, and we look forward to engaging you, down the line. Thank you. So to our listeners, you guys been asking a lot of questions out here, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to, respond to you concurrent with the show. But let's walk through some of these, and if you don't hear whatever question you ask, just feel free to re-ask the question. Victor Boya, we see that coups are taking place around Africa. I think I responded to this. My view is that there's significant lack of internal security across the country. There are a huge bunch of social problems that new governments come in, they don't try to handle, and people are just unhappy. And the people in our security sector, unfortunately, they have a depression on what the compensation. Most of them are unhappy. If you talk to a policeman today, most of them, whatever the salary is, cannot provide for the family. So government needs to do some readjustment. I just got a proposal for somebody today suggesting Mr. Cummings should say no government official will make more than $5,000, and we try to use all the savings from those $5,000 plus salaries to put into paying our teachers, our security people, and other civil servants who are really, really underpaid, and that's essential. So if we don't stop this, the internal security problems will continue. There will be additional coup in West Africa and probably other countries around the world. We just hope that it doesn't spread to us. The next question we have, where is Samoka? No, I don't know where Samoka is. Maybe he left the country. Maybe, somebody informed him that something was going on and he was able to leave before. Hopefully he left in a more dignified manner than what Yeke said Henry Costa left in, what they put in mat and put at the bottom of the boat. So hopefully our former Minister of Defense was able to exit, if he did, in a more dignified manner. Why is the current CPP chairman not speaking on Samoka issues? I don't know. I guess the two of them are from Foya. It could be, a situational thing. Maybe Samoka expected the vice president to support him in this effort. All along the way, we have not heard a word from the vice president in terms of Samoka. Maybe the vice president expected certain kind of support for Samoka, because most of the time, a lot of these things, when people are silent, it's like a payback. But we can't be silent about injustice. Injustice has to be righted. The Supreme Court, and hopefully I can get somebody who understand constitutional law, maybe like a Hammond Jones or somebody, to explain to us what the rationale of this decision from the Supreme Court. What is the larger impact on our country or on future situations that merit this with regards to corruption and other things. So we'll continue to do that as we grow this program. This is like our last dress rehearsal. So going forward, we'll be really, doing our business now. You can criticize or say anything. We now have 2 practice sessions. So this one is the real one. So feel free to critique us. We always want to get better. I believe in Kaizen, consistent, constant improvement. So tell us what we're going wrong, and we'll be able to rectify things. The young people propel we as presidency, that's true. And they have the ability to actually propel every presidency in this country because they are so much more than the rest of the people. Why did he not speak on plans for our future generation? Simply, he has no plans. President Weah doesn't care. He didn't care about these young people, as if he wasn't young himself before. But they are the future. Trust me. Last night, I was in Duboro talking to some young people who are under the influence, and they have a system. This kid was helping me park my car. So I said, every time you guys help me park my car, I get them money. Let me see what happened today. I get a kid the money. As soon as I gave him the money, he walked away from me. 2 of the other guys walked towards him, and it was $200 notes. So he just had a hand like this with the money, and one took 100, the other one took the other 100. So I let him go away. Now I said, but what's the deal? Is that how you're living? That every dime you get, they take it from you? And earlier, I talked to the kid. He looks young, probably 17, 18. And they were around. I said, how old are you? He said, 23. I said, you sure you're 23? So what's the situation with you? He said, I was in 11th grade at Pinsville Community College and I dropped out. Painesville Community High School or community school, and he dropped out because of XYZ. You know, hopefully, he's probably at the recoverable stage. I will try to see if I can get him in school, you know, get him back to school. But the environment he's in, he has to leave it. We have to find somewhere and put him in a supportive environment. But then again, I asked him what drugs he's taking. He gave me, geez, I forgot the name of the drug he said. I'll try to get it, you know, next show and share with you guys. But he was open. He was able to tell me he was on a certain, you know, a certain kind of drug. Now, for the mixtures that they have in Liberia, trust me, there are so many of them. And yesterday at that meeting to discuss the Zogo and the drugs issue, people were giving all kind of mixes. So we don't even know what's being put into our young people and what the potential for rehabilitation, detoxification, or anything of that nature is tough. And want to say, can we trust the court? I don't know if we can trust our court system. There are some good judges. There are some bad judges. There are definitely some archaic laws on the book. There are definitely some people who don't follow those processes and make their own rules up. There are definitely decisions, unfortunately, that lawyers can back. You know, judges are lawyers, most of them. They can back in a way that may make sense to some people reading it, especially if they favor that decision. But they are against the core, the fundamental laws, like what Jomo Jala just did to say that, you know, the prosecution can ask the defense for evidence to prosecute the defense. That's crazy. Go get a search warrant if you believe something exists that material to this case. But you say a document is public. Go in the public and get the document. Luckily, the lawyers for Mr. Cummings have challenged that decision. They will be going for, on Wednesday, they will be going for a hearing or conference in the judge's chamber and then a hearing, I believe. But hopefully, things can be rectified in a way that restores this trust and confidence in the court system. But right now, it's fragile. And for a lot of people who have not gotten justice over time, they don't believe we can trust our court system. Ajimo Fredericks, what is the role of a campaign manager in Liberia? Oh my God. Ajimo, that question is loaded. The campaign manager is extremely significant. The primary role is to get the candidate elected, obviously. But in terms of functionality, they got to be a project manager. They got to be a financial person. They got to be an engaging personality. They are supposed to be articulate and understand the issues, be able to sell their candidate, as well as maybe other candidates, especially if it's a presidential and legislative election. They got to have their hand on the pulse of the people. So that's why it's necessary to get a versatile person to be a campaign manager in Liberia. Politics in Liberia, you know, I don't like to use the word, but it's different. You know, why? Yes, in other places, people do vote on sentiment, emotion, tribe, clan, and some of the, you know, popularity. But in Liberia, it's just at a different level. You know, I'm not going to go as far as Ambola say, you know, most of our people don't like critical thinking. But the fact is the fundamentals for critical thinking are not there. You know, sometimes some people from experience, they may develop that ability to critically analyze things. And some people by nature, just how they're born, they are, you know, inquisitive, they are critical and stuff. So education may not be the bedrock for the ability to think critically. But a lot of times, if you don't have those fundamentals, you know, the academic support foundation to give the ability to look at things differently, critical thinking is lost for you. You can't think next level. You can't ask next level questions. And when you cannot do next level questions to see the direction, the logic, you know, the reasoning behind certain actions, or to do some scenario testing on if I do X, I may get Z. If I do Y, I may get A. You know, all those kind of things. It makes it difficult for you to be able to, you know, look at issues and understand. And then the lack of exposure for a lot of our people limits their ability to be able to, you know, understand some of the things that are happening, how it relates to what happens in other countries, and how things are actually supposed to be. Because for a lot of the things that happen in Liberia, Most people are totally uninformed. They get the end result of things and it's just left to them to say whether they're for it or against it. It's like a binary situation that most people are in. They don't have the opportunity of multiple options to look at. They can create those things because of the profound Liberian saying, if you don't know, you don't know. So the next question, well, this comment from G. Gwen Jones Smith, that good professional librarians are scattered all over the world. Now government is unwilling to tap into these expertise. That's a fact. There are professionals right here on the ground who are underutilized. So there's a issue of lack of capacity, there's an issue of underutilization, and there's an issue of misalignment where people who don't have the skills to execute certain responsibilities and functions are put into those positions where they are doomed to fail. And they mask that failure with pretension, with excluding other people who could help them. So, yes, we do have a capacity problem here. So why can't we eat something else besides rice? That's a big question. Rice is our staple food. And because of the limitation of our, agricultural production, I believe, and because of the poverty of our people, so the being able to have a diverse mixture of food, or even understanding from a healthy standpoint or diet standpoint what a balanced diet is, your green stuff, your starch, your meat, your fish, that kind of balance, most of our people don't understand it. And unfortunately, we don't have people who teach them. So some of the healthy Liberians are just healthy just by luck, not by purpose. And that's something that hopefully we can have people who can start to educate the public on a lot of these different things, what to eat. But in terms of changing our diet, I really believe it starts from the top. We really need to diversify. We have the ability to grow cassava, and cassava is a flexible plant that you can do so many different things with, from the doma, the deeper, the farina, to just other foods that can be created for cassava, the plantain, the potatoes. We have the soil here, we have the ability, we have the capacity to expand our diet, but it's just about leadership. It's just about teaching our people and trying to change the palate. It's not an easy task. It may be simple to say, but it's something that's doable. So hopefully we can start to, push in that direction and be able to change the way our people focus on rice, that dependency, and be able to balance our diet that we can say, oh, only 45% of our people are that dependent on rice. 35% focusing on cassava, 25% on plantain. So again, like we were saying earlier, it takes data to understand. Right now, everything is anecdotal. Even though cassava and cassava products are making a lot of headway, people eating a lot of plantain, but plantain is like a side dish more so than a primary food. But at the end of the day, we need to focus on those things. Data is critical. We need to have this information. What are our people consuming? What are we inputting? This and that. All of those things are critical to how we move the country forward. Oh, wonderful. There's a user here. And unfortunately, whoever, please put your name in the box. Mr. Tukpa, want to join the Cummings team? I'm already a supporter. We'd love to have you on board. Mr. Cummings believe that we have a big tent. There's room for everybody to come and join us, and there's a role for everybody. And he really means that. He wants to utilize as many people as possible to participate in this campaign. It's the people's campaign. He really believes Liberians are the ones who can change Liberia. No Lebanese, no Indian, no Turkish person. I don't care what kind of grant the Americans or Europeans gave us. It would not change Liberia if we don't enact that change, if we don't take ownership of our country and want to make that change happen. So please put your name in the box. If you want, you can message me via Isaac Tukpa, on Messenger, and put my information. And for me, my number don't hide in Liberia. My number is 0770-774411. You can call me. I'm one of those people. If I don't want to talk to you, I will tell you I don't want to talk to you. It's not a big deal, but I try to answer every call, or at least call back in less than 24 hours. One of my other WhatsApp number is +1 301 655 5984. Feel free to call me. We are very open, very responsive, and want to get as many people on board as possible to make sure this movement for real change, for a better Liberia, is something that we are able to implement and enact in a democratic fashion. Okay, so let me see. What's the next question? Oh, I think that's it. There were some good comments here. So I want to say thank you to all of those who tune in. We do have a lot of work to do as a people. So we need everybody hands on. And not everybody has to become a member of the ANC. Or everybody doesn't have to support Mr. Cummings to make your impact on our society. You know, some people claim they're apolitical. Fine. Don't do the politics. But don't just be a suggester. Be an actor. Try to find a space that you can contribute. Try to find something that we can do. There are many young people on this ground that could be so much in a better situation if they had just a little bit of support. Many of them want to go to school. Many of them want to advance themselves. And unfortunately, they don't see that advancement domestically. They see it only happen probably outside the country. And that's why if you talk to the majority of the young people, they don't want to be here. They want to leave this country. And when you have your population feeling that way, like there's no hope that they can't do anything in this country, it's very sad. We really, really need to work on changing that. Oh, LRB, we do the whole, we do the all you're here watching. My man, you're welcome, man. Any day. And if you're ready to come on, let me know. If you will take off the mask, we can unmask you in this real big time fashion where people can see you for who you really are and be able to connect with you. You know, Bedu, there was a very intellectual guy who's hiding himself because of whatever reason. I don't want to say what it is because I think he shared with me one time. So, when does one day start and end as a campaign manager? Maybe this is from somebody else. Maybe it's still from Archie Mobile. You know, I'm seeing Facebook user. So let me give an example. Like, I'm not a campaign manager. I'm just chief of office staff for Mr. Cummings. For no day ends for me. The day just run one day into another. It's a continuous thing. You know, elections are very tense. And these elections for 2023 is already started. The president has set aside $10 million, basically, that has been put into the LIST budget, the Liberian Agency for Community Empowerment. Okay, their budget before was probably 1 billion and change. Now is 12 million. You know, so that 10 million there is there for him to do whatever he wants to do. Forget about his entertainment budget, because one day I will break down this budget for you people so you guys can see how screwed up the budget is. But unfortunately, we got a rubber stamp House of Representatives and sometimes a rubber stamp Senate. But sometimes the Senate pushes back, so which is good. But essentially, he's buttering up our chiefs right now. After ignoring these communities for I don't know how long, he's giving them 2 vehicles each in the county, multiple, you know, bicycles per district, motorcycles and stuff. But I'll say to the people, that's actually the country's money. It's not a George Weah project. And that's the insanity of what they do. They put George Weah on everything. Our national coffers expenditures are now George Weah expenditures. He needs to distinguish what he's spending from what our revenue generation is that's being put back into the country, into our people. You know, we talk about decentralization a little bit. Our counties need to be empowered. I have this theory, I really believe in. If 15 to 20 progressive sons and daughters from the different counties can move into their counties, and hopefully with what's happening around the world, especially in the United States, where they are becoming a little bit more nationalistic and not too concerned with us foreigners, people will be able to come back home who can really contribute, and they will go to their counties. I admire the people in Nimba, big time. I go to Ganta. It's exciting to be in Ganta, even though, again, the ghetto problem, the Zogo problem is moving fast. faster than the pace of development. But the people in Nima, they go back into the county. They try to build the county. They try to make a difference. It's very commendable for them to do that. If more of us could have that orientation to go back to the county of our birth and try to work with the people there, this dynamic of diaspora or, wherever you come from, whether Europe, US, or other parts of Africa, and the people on the ground, we've got to strike a decent balance where we understand the people on the ground have been there, they got ground knowledge. But the people coming from the outside have exposure, experience that when integrated with that knowledge, especially when people can take away their biases or their insecurities and try to work together. Don't act like you know everything. At the same time, don't act like whatever the man is coming with or the woman is coming with is not relevant. All of those things are relevant towards the development process. So that's why we have to work together to integrate to be able to transform our country, because people only in Liberia can do it. People from the diaspora, sending mandates and, broad statements on development, it's not going to do it. We got to come down into the gutter, into the weeds, and work together for us to move this country forward. Yeah. Let me see who next. What does a coming president present for a post-We Are Liberia, considering his manifest weaknesses on many fronts, including his inability to distance himself from some of the corrupt politicians of our immediate context, his lack of a broad-based political appeal, and his limited exposure in our political space? That's a loaded question. I can try to answer it from my perspective, right? Post-We Are, there's a stark contrast between Mr. Cummings and Mr. Weah. Mr. Cummings is a real professional. Mr. Weah is a soccer professional. Mr. Cummings has the ability to absorb information from multiple sources, condense it, and be able to come up with a decision about it. Weah does not have that ability. Both of them got exposure, but exposure of a different nature. George Weah move around with kings, queens, real high-profile people as a celebrity. Mr. Cummings move around in cycles with high-profile people on substance, on his competence, on his intellect, not because he was a soccer athlete or soccer star. So they bring so many, the differences are just stark in terms of what they bring to the table. Okay, Mr. Cummings is a doer. He's disciplined, and I know both individuals. And at this point I've known Mr. Cummings probably since 2014. Professionally and now personally. Over the last few years, though, because we have some common friends, there's been some personal interaction. Man, I've been knowing for a very long time. So those two folks, I'm telling you, the work ethic of Mr. Cummings, a lot of times I think most people are lazy. I don't respect their ability to endure and sustain and work consistently and be focused. But I respect Mr. Cummings for that. Mr. Cummings is very hardworking. He has attention to detail. He has high-level managerial skills. You will hardly ever find Mr. Cummings putting, people down. Every opportunity is a learning opportunity. Every mistake, every challenge is an ability to grow. And when you have people like that who can nurture and develop people and be able to elevate them from the doldrums, from the negativity, from the mistakes, the miscues, it's very inspiring. And that's what happens with a lot of people who engage with Mr. Cummings. So just from that, distance, when you look at it, you see two different individuals. Now, in regards to the current political situation, people say, oh, Mr. Cummings should not deal with this person, not deal with that person. But the reality is, those are the people in the space. You have to engage them, but you got to keep your own standards, your own, desire for excellence, your own vision for Liberia, your own passion to make things happen and push them. And you see, sometimes when you push, the system pushes back. And that's what we are seeing today. Mr. Cummings engaged Boyka, he engaged Yuri, he engaged Yomdi Kanga. What happens? Competition, simple competition. They are scared of competition. You see, and they probably assumed the CPP was going to be a coronation of Joseph Boyka. No, Mr. Cummings is really a competitor, and people may not see that visually with the rah-rah and the screaming and, oh, I will not do that, I will do this, I will do that, I will do the other. No. He's a composed individual. Maybe corporate America drove that kind of composure, that level of poker face, that level of inside burning to compete, burning to achieve something, but not necessarily screaming at the top of your voice. But your actions dictate that direction you're going in. Your consistency, your persistence to be able to achieve those things demonstrate that. And that's what separates, Mr. Cummings from many of the other politicians. And hopefully some of them will understand where he's coming from and gravitate in that direction, that they themselves want to expend the necessary effort. They're not looking for shortcuts because, look, Mr. Cummings will say all the time, he needs everybody on board. He needs all the professionals on board. It's not an easy task. Yes, you are the leader. Yes, the buck stops for you. Yes, you must provide direction and leadership. But the actual grunt work, is a chain reaction, right? So if Mr. Cummings coming to work at 8 o'clock every morning, he means just coming to work at 8 or probably a little earlier. They have reports coming a little earlier. So we get, more productivity in the workplace. People are not just skating. Just we are not coming to work. Many ministers will not come to work on time. They may be there for certain meetings, and so they will not be as fastidious and dedicated to being able to produce without any performance management system in place, holding them accountable, to what they're supposed to be doing. They're not operating. And we know when we grade our ministers, Center and other organizations grade the ministers and what they do, they're not up to the level that they're supposed to be producing and making an impact for the president. So as much as the buck stops with the president, they have certain responsibilities, but unfortunately, he doesn't have the willpower to say he will fire people who are not performing. And he probably doesn't even have the framework or the metrics to determine whether somebody is performing or not. I would love to hear some kind of end of the year discussion between, President Weah and maybe the Minister of Finance or the Minister of Agriculture or even the Minister of State as to what was accomplished and how they did it. Just submitting a report on your ministry's activities for inclusion in the State of the Nation address is bogus, because look at the bunch of lies that President Weah was sharing with us there for that useless 2 hour 35 minute State of the Nation address. It was not worth it. So we'll come back to this. His lack of a broad-based political appeal, and that's the mistake. Mr. Cummings has broad-based political appeal, and you can look at his numbers. People say he doesn't have a base, like a tribal base or so. You may be mistaken, though. The Creole people are the 3rd largest tribe. The people from Maryland. They are spread Maryland, River G, Grand Cruz, somewhere, even in Sino. Then they got splinters group all over the country, and in Montserrat, there's a significant presence of Creole people. So I'm not going to say that's his base per se, right? But his base cuts across women, cuts across youth, and he has been the only person who has been doing something consistently since 2017. And that base has grown significantly. Today, Cummings is a household name, whether you like it or not, or whether you want to agree or not, he really is a household name. Now, the next step is engaging those individuals to get them convicted that this man is the man. This man is the one that has the potential to make a difference for them, for their children and their children and generation forward. Because this is about setting the foundation for our country. We are at a very critical stage, a very critical juncture. And it would take a president with the will, with the commitment, with the ability, with the network, with the exposure to be able to bring all these things together and move this country forward. And if we can't have that, seriously, with the Zogo problem, if we can find somebody who will come to help and provide solutions for that problem, that significant number of our population, let's make it simple. We have 73 districts. We'll do simple math, right? So let's say, very conservatively, that one person a day is moving into that drug culture out of the 73 districts. So that's 73 people, right? So that's 73. So each year, times 365, That's 26,645 persons that will be adding to that roll, that drug roll. And we know with peer pressure, it's probably more. With the stress that people face from poverty, that's more. I talk to those guys. Some of them believe, they say, but wait now, the squad men who not Zogo. If I hustle as a Zogo doing certain things, whether that the hardcore crime or the snatching bag or just the kind of begging on the street and hustling here and there, I can get more money than no people there. So what's the point? Why am I be like that? So it's a tough decision. And at the end of the day, whether we say analytical or not, that's what people base most of their actions on. Can I feed myself today? Can I feed my children today? That's what drives it. The hunger is huge because of the level of poverty. Until we can feed ourselves and adequately feed our population, we are in serious trouble. Until we can do some level of rehabilitation, training, and reintegration of these people in society, even we get 35 to 40% of them, that's significant. And find a way to, not necessarily quarantine, but keep those people off the streets. Let them know there's a penalty for some of these petty crimes and violent crimes that they commit. We're not moving this country forward. There's no accountability. People at every level operate with impunity, total impunity. So again, you talk about limited exposure to political space. Our political situation is not rocket science. At the end of the day, people want a better life. Most people. So to the extent that Mr. Cummings represents that promise, that hope that people can do that, they will gravitate towards it. And we can only wait for time to tell. Can we start doing more jingles? I mean, this is jingle by team and jingles with Mr. Cummings' platform in all our local languages moving forward. That's a wonderful suggestion, Ms. Anita Kui-Kane. That's something we can definitely look into and do. And we are doing a little bit of that, trying to reach out to different radio stations to share his speeches in the vernacular. Doing the 16 languages is not an easy thing. So we'll probably start with 10, 11, the more popular one, the more that have a greater level of population attached to them and be able to share those. But yes, that's a wonderful idea, and we will be doing that. New platform. Sometimes some things don't change. The same issues we're primarily faced with back in 2017 when Mr. Cummings came on the scene are basically the same things faced today. So a lot of what was done in 2017 would just be remodel, rephrase, restart, plus the new issues are developing, especially with the rape situation, especially with the Zogo situation, the drug situation. I mean, when people talk about how much drugs flow through Liberia, it's incredible. Way more than our GDP. That's how much drugs flow here. It's a recognized transshipment point now with leakages that drop some into our community and affects our people. So those are solutions that we need to be able to, come up with to help our people to move our country forward. I don't know what question this Facebook user is talking about. And unfortunately, many of you are coming in as Facebook users. No, well, Stephen Blair says there's a Fox News one side belief. Well, he said believe, but I think he means belief. No, it's not. Some of us love Liberia. Yes, we may be members of a political party, but we are very objective when it comes to the issues and the solutions, and even the comparisons. Where Mr. Weah is better than Mr. Cummings, I'll say it. But when it comes to governance and stuff, I don't see where. We can have that debate or that discussion any day. When it comes to vision, I don't see where. When it comes to actual ability to implement, I don't see where. So it's not biased. We want the best for this country. Well, we responded to this question before. I gave my number so this guy will call Oh, somebody actually quantified this. 70% of the youth want to leave the country. That is so sad. That is so sad. We really, really look, folks, especially those in the diaspora. I form an organization called the Liberia Integration Transformation Movement. We need people to join that movement. It's not political. Everything is political, but it's not a political purpose. Its purpose is to help those idealists, those people who have, wonderful ideas, wonderful vision, and who want to do something, especially from an entrepreneurial standpoint, to be able to partner with them and make a difference. Every year we have people graduating. Yes, sometimes we're not comfortable with the ability or the learnings of those graduates, but those are people who want to do something. So if we can work together and invest in them to do some small business. Yes, me and some friends, they came up with the idea about $100 in small business. I don't think $100 cuts it. If we can start $500 businesses and start to put people where they can be sustainable. I basically did something similar. Spent like $500 on this lady, this young little girl that got burned, and I helped her to recover, along with many of you out there who were supportive. We're able to give the mom, $500 worth of supplies for her to start her business, and I've gone back there and seen it, and she has not asked me for a dime since then. I don't think intrinsically people just want to beg or depend. But a lot of times they say they don't have the hand. They really mean they don't have the hand. But if you can help them get into some kind of revenue generating business to do something for themselves, they will be able to be independent. I think our people are prideful, but the begging culture has gotten really bad, and they feel that's the only way out, to beg, to ask. And until we can try to help them change that by empowering them a little bit more to do something beneficial, it's going to continue. The only thing I do for that little girl now is pay her school fees. But other than that, her basic needs, the mom takes care of it. So hopefully we can continue to do that. What is Mr. Cummings doing to help that guy that is doing agricultural work in Liberia? I think his name is, you talk about Armstrong Japa. I'm a part of Agriculture Liberia. Sometimes it's in a cloud. I think we need more transparency from Armstrong. But Armstrong is a smart guy, and Armstrong is dedicated. But sometimes he's insecure because people have messed with him over time. And there are a lot of Liberians like that who are overly protective because people have screwed them over. Some of them don't even want to deal with Liberians. And we see it here. Our own government is screwing Liberians over. Opportunities come, they try to steal people opportunities. They make it difficult for people to do business. They set unreasonable conditions. They want parts of people's businesses. Things don't work like that. So Armstrong has potential, but Armstrong has to be a little bit more transparent. He got to open up. He got to build some confidence in certain people, and it will happen. Armstrong got ideas from construction, utilizing different methodology to build some low-cost housing. He has, great vision in the agriculture sector. We have talked many nights. So hopefully, that bond can happen, that, Armstrong and many other of the visionary Liberians out there can be able to do their thing in an enabling space, in an enabling environment. That's what needs to happen. Mr. Tukpa, I'm into technology. What is Mr. Cummings playing for technology and getting some of these young Liberians working and diverting their attention from just government job? Great question, foreign guy. So Mr. Cummings is highly supportive of science, technology, engineering, math, STEM. But you can even make it STEAM and put agriculture after the E. You can put in economics and say STEAM-E. But those are the areas, STEM, agriculture, and the economy, that Mr. Cummings is focused on. And Mr. Cummings' vision is for these young people to build these skills, right? We are really looking to people in the technology sector to accelerate everything we do. We don't have to war. We can leapfrog certain things through technology, the learning system, being able to really improve our offerings by being able to utilize people in the diaspora and through technology to be able to present. But there are some basic things that need to happen. You saw tonight what happened with electricity. You saw tonight how sometimes whether it was me on previous show or whether it was Prince tonight, freezing. So if our, backbone structure here with regards to our technology system is not solid, we'll be experiencing these limitations. We'll not move forward. If electricity is not constant and dependable, whether we're using hydro or whether we're using alternative electricity, we need something to happen. Coming up in Mr. Cummings' response to the State of the Nation address, hopefully on Monday, he will address some of these things, with regards to electricity and stuff like that. He has a vision for the country. And luckily for me, a lot of those visions are shared vision, things I believe in too. So it's just natural for me to be able to articulate Mr. Cummings' vision for what he wants for the Liberian people. Well, Stevie Wule, you asked, oh no, you didn't ask that question. You come in with Cummings guilty. Yeah, you think somebody get guilty about Muff? The thing is, okay, if you see Cummings guilty, what is he guilty of? Okay, the accusation is forgery and criminal conspiracy. What did he forge? So this document, can somebody tell us simply how it gives Mr. Cummings an advantage over any other person who was in the CPP? What did he forge? And what was the purpose? How many months it been since probably August that Benona made his false accusation, and he has not come up with one fact to support it, but yet somebody like a Stephen Wule can say, oh, Cummings guilty? Come on, man. That's what Mr. Mame said. Most of us don't have any critical thinking skills. Okay. The LRB Betume, he let give me hard time. Let me see what he's saying. Va. Do you have any constitutional lawyer who can speak to the following? Given most of our laws were crafted under the 1847 Constitution, and that Constitution was suspended by the PRC, can we safely say many of our laws, those that have yet to be amended, Don't toggle. I'm on live. Just listen if you want to listen to my show. If you can't listen, call me back. Yeah, so I will tell somebody I have to answer the call for them to know I'm okay. So the question here, LRB Wetu is saying, can we safely say many of our laws, those that have yet to be amended, are in violation of the Constitution today? Easily you can say that. You don't even need a constitutional lawyer. Look at the Rodney C. case back then when they wanted to charge him. I forgot what the amount. It was some obscure amount, and we wrote, we supported, we raised funds for that to happen, and Rodney came out of jail a hero. Yes, there are many laws on the book that are not consistent with our Constitution, and the 1986 Constitution overrules those laws, but you probably have to go to court for it. I think there was an effort to revisit all our laws. Unfortunately, that has not happened. Again, that's the laziness inherent in the people who are supposed to be doing the work. Lawmakers don't prioritize that. They're living a life of freedom. They are at the highest level. They don't care. People, when somebody say people care for the people, I don't see it demonstrated. I don't see most of the lawmakers who are advocates for the people, who are advocates in terms of what they are supposed to do, serve oversight roles for all the criminal stuff that happened here. Some legislators supposed to be like our Superman, our Robin Hood, who is really pushing to make a difference for our people. So no, the lawmakers are not prioritizing the issues relevant to the people. Do you know or have you seen any legislative metrics of amended laws? Well, I didn't see the rest of it, but I think I know where you're going. No, I have not seen that. And that is what needs to happen. That is what needs to happen. We really need to get our law straight. We need to get our country straight. We need to get our economics straight. And we're not happy until we get the right leader in there. Yeah. Oh, my brother. Kulubo Zumo Zakama. What's up, bro? I will call you soon, man. Been a while. Be great to hear from you soon. Whew. No, the other person is wishing bad. The criminal cartel want him dead. So to clear the way. No, I mean, I don't know about dead, but obviously these folks don't want Mr. Cummings in the race. You see, there's all these rumors about Mr. Cummings that he's arrogant. That is so wrong. Mr. Cummings is a humble man. But you see, in his humility, Mr. Cummings know what his capabilities are. He know what he can do, and he know what he can do. The things he can do, he tries to do it to the best of his ability. The things he can do, he reaches out to other people to participate in the process and to contribute. And many people are starting to understand that now. But he has a very wonderful ability. Sometimes we need different chat room. Everybody, strong personalities come with different things. And he will review, then he can synthesize and bring it together, collapse it into something solid and be able to give us maybe better guidance or where his position is on issue. And then it comes to a vote, where we go. So there's no dictatorship involved in this thing. And a lot of times that's determined by the people around the leader and the leader's own ability to be secure in his position. That's why Mr. Cummings will speak to anybody. He will reach out to anybody and he can push back, especially for our friends in the diaspora. One of his biggest pushback is, we need you here. And not even only with a Cummings presidency, but it's with you being a part of this system, part of this advocacy, part of this contribution towards a better Liberia. Because the thing is like chemistry. If you have water here sitting down, that water will stay by itself except for some evaporation. But if you want to make that water cool, you better put some kind of mixture in it, whether that your only lemonade where you're squeezing, or whether you're grapefruit you're squeezing or something to make it some kind of juice. You need something else. And that's what we need. We need additional input into the elements that are on the ground. We need to create platforms where people who are not physically present, they are distributed over the work and make contributions. But you got to be open to accepting contributions from those people. There are so many qualified and competent Liberians that we don't have to go to a concession with Metal Steel with only a few people who don't have the capability to negotiate in the best interest of our country. We need professional contract lawyers. We need concession lawyers. And they got Liberians in that space that will do some things pro bono, but at the same time, they're doing something that is professional. They need to be compensated properly. That's one thing we don't do. We don't respect our Liberian professionals. We don't want to pay them at a commensurate level with other professionals around the world. And some of them don't even ask for the same level, knowing the conditions in this country. But yet, we neglect the capability reflected in Liberians and try to go and seek other input. We need to do better as a people. We need to build a higher level of nationalism, which leads to greater patriotism towards our country. We have many out there, but hey, we know some stuff. There are Liberians in the highest level of the UN, in the highest level of the African Development Bank, in the highest level of the IMF, the World Bank, other key institutions of learning all around the world. We have people. We do you wear me? Oh, what is Cummings' agenda to ensure we drive Liberians towards local elections to steer the affairs of the county? Oh, Mr. Cummings believes in decentralization. Not abrupt, but a processed path to ensuring that the counties, especially the wealth inherent in those counties, are beneficial to the citizens of those counties. He believes that there has to be some level of remigration back into the counties for these people who are have been, I don't want to say migrated from the country to other places, but who have left to be able to go back and operate. Every county should have their own ability to govern themselves at certain levels and then be able in a federated way to give back to the national government. But not everything will come from the county, come to the national government. Then one or two people sit there to decide what goes back to the county, or only through certain concession agreement where limited corporate social responsibility is reflected in the benefits to the county from those concession agreements. No. So Mr. Cummings believes that people should elect their leaders. So hopefully our form of government is there in the Constitution, but it's not implemented. So he doesn't want puppets. Mr. Cummings wants people who are actors people who are initiators, people who share his vision and can help implement it within their own space. If we get the right lawmakers, decentralization and governance in the counties is a reality. Well, if you will, the update in the case is Mr. Cummings' lawyers have filed for a review of the decision by Judge Joman Jala that requested Mr. Cummings to produce whatever was being requested of him in 72 hours. And, hopefully on Wednesday, we'll know something more. The judge, I think it's Judge Willie at the Circuit Court A, will bring that into, national attention as to where the case is and make that decision. Yes, Victor Smith, we really need research and innovation. And it can come from Liberia. And look, folks, though many of our people speak colloquial, we have a better version of English than most of the other countries, where business process is outsourced to. So Mr. Cummings really believes that's an area that has a high upside for Liberia. There are many businesses today in this world that need, customer service support, that need technical support. Many of our people can ascend to that level of, cybersecurity, troubleshooting, doing different functions in our space. We have some technology schools there. We have smart kids. It's just about giving them that opportunity, giving them that foundation that they can use. So, folks, let's try to do it that way. I think we've run through the questions, and I want to say thank you to all our people. We don't do that every time now because people start asking plenty of questions. But I want to say thank you for this show. We've been on here for like 2 hours now, from 6 to 8. Normally we do 1 hour, but today because the radio show was not continuing, or the radio show did not come on, it didn't happen. So we're not limited to that time frame. But I just realized that beyond the radio show, we can still continue the show. So based on how much time, the official will be 6 to 7. But if on any day, we have the opportunity to move the needle forward by prolonging the show and talking to the issues, we'll be willing to do that. So thank you. Wonderful recommendation from Qatar, Ministry of Science and Technology. Somebody has suggested, a technology czar, that will fall under kind of. And Clarence Valley telling us the elephant hunter himself, that the Liberian agro sector has been underfunded for time immemorial, especially after the war. This puts Liberia at the bottom of countries in the sub-region. What is Cummings' roadmap to reawakening this sector? We'll discuss some of those things. Mr. Cummings really, really believes that agriculture is the way forward. I will call my man Victor Smith. He's the president of the engineering division. I believe he's my brother's brother. I believe Yamu Sawan is his brother. Yes, Victor, we really believe that technology is the way forward, and you guys who are in the sector, you can help us. We have many friends in that time. So thank you, and we'll continue to provide you a weekend review every Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday. Peace.